Jam. Genevieve back on the relationship series. And we have an episode for you today. We'll be having a transformational conversation.
It's going to be real. It's going to be raw. It's going to be authentic with the goal of just sharing what have we been through? Where are we now? How did we get here? And I can't wait to have this conversation with y'all.
To tap into something interesting that you said, Jen, you said there were people that were saying that you felt like you failed. Now, what is your perspective on even if a marriage has been 10, 15, 20 years and people separate or divorce, do you feel that it failed?
Like, do I think that people who divorce are failures? Or do I use that language to describe transitioning out of relationships?
Right.
No, I don't. Okay. I think that is strong language. And I think what we do is we apply that to our personhood. I have failed when the relationship dissolves or when we choose to go our separate ways or what have you. I don't resonate with that label or that conclusion. I mean, I do like to call it transitioning because I think there are other ways to be in relationship. I mean, at the time I felt it for sure.
I often say that people shouldn't say it's a failure. It ended. You know, things end. Mm-hmm. You could have traveled a path with someone as far as you could and and then you decide to take different paths. So the trail ended. Mm-hmm. But most people seem to refer failure to Yeah.
And I love that, right? It's a necessary ending. Mm-hmm. And I think is it Henry Cloud? He has a book called Necessary Endings. And the idea is that part has ended. Like we're sitting here today having this conversation. Right. And so we're not dead, you know? And so in some ways, the relationship can continue. We can make choices about how it continues. And so it doesn't have to happen overnight. You know, we didn't have any children, so we didn't have to think about that immediately. Oh, we have to think about co-parenting and, you know, how we're going to navigate finances in different homes and so on. We didn't have to do that. Right. But here we are sitting. Right. And so we can think about it as what are the different paths that we can take to continue in relationship and how do we want to do that? We didn't talk for years.
Right.
For years.
Yeah.
Right. And when the time came that we had done our own work, you know, what are we? Almost 10 years out, you know? And now we're sitting here having this conversation in a very purposeful way.
Yeah.
So we're still purpose partners in a sense. We're just not married partners.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so did we fail?
No.
I don't know. You know, that to me, it doesn't fit.
Right.
I hear the sentiment. I think I have a different relationship with the word failure in the way that I characterize it. I like to think of my life as a pile of failures that I'm sitting on. And I'm sitting up high because of the stack of failures that I've amassed in my life.
Okay.
So if
Facing failure, here we go.
People hear the phrase fail forward, for example.
Fail forward.
Yeah. I had to face the failure, decisions I made, the mistakes I made in our marriage. And I had to learn from it. And I'm grateful because that's a step up. It's a leg up for me. That's an experience that I have that I can navigate the world differently and help other people. So
absolutely.
I embrace the fact that if I'm going to be trying something, there's going to be failures. There's a real cost to these failures as we've been talking about. But I'm okay with the fact that I failed as a husband. It feels uncomfortable a little bit to say it, but I'm also like, as one who failed, I have knowledge and expertise and understanding that puts me at an advantage now.
Yeah.
So why not just call it experience?
Experience, which is a great word. The specificity of the failure matters. Right. I am not a failure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I failed at a particular task or role or assignment. Right. That's powerful because then it's not an identity piece. It's not a mantle that I wear. It's not something that I embody. It's something that took place, that happened. It's external to the self or to the person. Words matter.
No,
you know, what we say and how we frame things matter. Just hearing you say that. Yeah, absolutely. That resonates. It's a great perspective.
They say failure is not an identity. Failure is an event.
Right.
I remember one day, you know, being curled up on the bathroom floor, like sobbing, heaving, like trying not to entertain suicidal thoughts. And like, it was just like a faint whisper. And it was like, this is not how your story ends. This is a moment. This is not your identity. This is not your destiny, right? An event. You know, this is a particular thing that's happening, but it's not the whole story.
Yeah, that's really big. Now, that brings me to the question. What was that pivotal moment when you decided, you know what, my life's going to change it for the better?
There were a series of moments where it didn't happen all at once. It happened sort of in incremental steps. And I remember having those experiences in conversation, like with my friends. I remember we took a random trip to like Miami. You know, I was like crushed. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing in my life? Let's just go. Travel is, I talk about travel therapy. Travel is like a real thing for me. And I will jump on a plane in a minute. Okay. So I remember we went to Miami, and I remember we were sitting down. It was like outside on the strip, the sun is shining, you know, and we're just talking. I don't remember who said what. I just remember feeling a shift, like something shifted on the inside of me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, nah, man, I can do this. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with the future. I don't know how this is going to happen, but there's going to be a shift. And I remember sitting down with my girlfriends, and I had started my program. I had gone back to school full time to become a psychotherapist. And I remember I was planning for like the final courses and practicum and graduation and stuff. And it was like, yo, I can do this. No, I'm going to be great. And there were a number of those moments like that happened where I felt shifts and strength throughout the grieving process over the years. Right. You know, I'm here now. We both have our own platforms. We're both moving forward in the things that we've always said we want. I think that speaks volumes of what we've put in, what the work has been.
The moment that everything changed. I think when people ask that question, it's usually a series of things that happen. And I think in my case, it's no different, but I do have a moment. Mm-hmm. I have a story. Post-separation, early divorce, I was checked out of life for the most part. I was just going through the motions. And I think to a degree, even when Genevieve and I were married, there was part of me that was still going through the motions. And I think I told Genevieve that at some point. I'm not sure if you remember that. But I was like, I feel like my heart is cold, like I'm not alive in the way that I want to be. That's the state I was in to some degree before the marriage, during the marriage, and immediately after marriage. So I'm living in Whistler, British Columbia, and a friend of mine gives me a call and says, hey, I have this great idea. I want to do a month-long personal development retreat. We're going to hire the best experts in the world. They're going to come to the beaches of the Caribbean, and we're going to run this amazing retreat. I'm like, that sounds cool. I have a background in events. I'll do operations. You're the ideas guy? And he's like, yeah, that sounds great. So he lives in Quebec. I fly to Quebec, and we start laying the foundations for this company. And within like 2 days, we get in a big fight. All right. And at the time, I think this fight is so stupid. He's telling me, you're not serious. You're not waking up at 6 a.m. Everybody who's serious about life, they wake up at the 5 a.m. club. What's going on? He's telling me all this nonsense from my perspective. And he says something to me. He says, Samuel, if you want to run this company, you have to become the type of person who can run a personal development company. And I take that away, and I'm offended, right? I'm offended. But then I realize that I'm just treating this as any other gig, any other thing that I've done in life for the last however many years. Right. And I say, you know what? It couldn't hurt to apply some of these personal development principles that we're reading about or that the experts that we're bringing in for this retreat are going to employ. Right. And so I start meditating. I start doing affirmations. I start reading my Bible. I start praying again. Mm-hmm. I have a very short list of things that I do every day. It begins to transform me, which I didn't expect or believe. So I began to transform as I began to connect with God again regularly. And as I began to reimagine and access my own identity and the dreams that I had when I was younger, I began to dream again. And I began to see myself differently in a different light. And one of the first affirmations that actually started to change in me, it's one I still use today. I care about myself and I care about other people. Because through therapy, I had realized that I didn't care about myself. Mm-hmm. I was indifferent towards myself, which is why I treated myself the way I did. Right. And which was why I treated everyone else the way that I did, without realizing it. So I began to actually care. I'm like, I can't do this. I care. Mm-hmm. That was one of the first ones that I'm like, oh, this stuff actually works. So for me, that conversation was actually the transitional moment that like has opened up a whole new, wave of like inner recovery and inner healing to me. Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people out there would want to know this. Was there a point where you actually hated each other?
I don't think I ever felt hatred. I hated the fact that we were going through what we were going through. I think part of me felt, I want to say it's similar to compassion, but it's closer to pain. Like I felt pain when I thought of like what you were going through. Right. And like it was painful for me. I don't think it translated into like hatred. I recognized like he was actually struggling. Right. You know what I mean? And when we're struggling, when we're hurt, we make decisions that end up hurting people that we love and people that we care for. I happen to be on the receiving end of that, but I don't think I ever thought, oh, he's doing this on purpose. Like if this is like a malicious, evil person. So yeah, I didn't hate him at all.
And you?
No, I mean, feelings of anger.
Right.
But no hate.
So there was blame.
Definitely blame.
Okay.
Absolutely. I was like, this is your fault, bro.
Yeah.
This is your fault. Yeah. The reason why we're here in this situation, this is you. You did all this.
Right.
And I was self-righteous to a certain degree. I was like, I'm the one, I pray for us, and I have this wonderful vision of what quality, healthy relationship. I'm the relationships coach and all the things. And I didn't take time to really think of my role in the co-creation of the dynamic that we had. But I think, even coming out of that, Samuel is very good at taking account. Well, I don't know if it was at the time, but right now anyway, and after our separation, very good at taking accountability for his role and for his actions. And so it was easy to blame him. It was easy. Like, you said it, you did it.
So how about you? Did you blame her at all for not supporting you through it?
Sure. If I was to assign, if there was a pizza full of blame, some of the blame in my mind at the time went to some childhood experiences and childhood traumas that planted some of these issues within me, right? The way that addiction often works, that person is wired differently when they connect with a certain stimulus, right? For example, you have two kids. One kid plays video games and he's like, oh, this is cool. Never touches the video game again. Another kid plays a video game and his mind automatically, oh my gosh, I need this, right? So for the rest of his life, that kid that voice in his head is like, play the video game. And then he's like, no, I'm not playing no video games. I have work to do. But then that voice wears you down. And eventually you're like, okay, fine, I'll just play the video game, right? And then you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is life. What else? I don't want to do anything else. All I want to do is play the video game. Right. And so there's an internal wiring that's different. So because of some things that happened in my childhood, my wiring became different. And then I would put a bulk of the blame there when we were married. I would also put this number 2 on me. I'm like, I got to figure this out. Like, this is the husband and the man that I said I wanted to be, and this is not where I am, right? So it's got to be me. Maybe I put some on God too. I'm like, God, I've been praying for you. I've been asking you for help. Where are you?
Right. Yeah.
And then maybe number 4 on the list would have been Genevieve. Right? I would have been like, you're my wife. You're my help me. Like, where's my help? Right. So I think those are the feelings at the time that I experienced.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a great visual.
What motivated the two of you to get together today to do this?
It was kind of a joke. Samuel actually sent me a message to ask if we could have a conversation. You said you wanted to ask me a question. We got on a video call and he said, "Hey, I see you're doing your transformational conversations, your relationship series, you're doing all the things. I'm also doing some things. Some of my focus has to do with relationships as well." And then he asks me, "Hey, as I'm sharing my personal story with other people, is there anything that you don't want me to talk about as it pertains to our marriage?" And I was like, man, I've been sharing my story for all these years. I had never thought to ask him, like, is there anything, and I don't share your personal details or anything like that, but I still never thought to ask, like, hey, is there anything that you might want to, hold or keep? And I felt honored. And I felt covered and respected in him asking me that question.
Right.
And I was like, I'm pretty much an open book. So, say whatever you want to say, right? Here we are now. We're past that. And there's a lot of forgiveness and a lot of growing that has happened. So I think that was a really cool question. Then in the conversation, I was like, man, look at us having this conversation. You should come on my relationship podcast. And he was like, oh, ha, 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 ha. And then we get off the line and then he texts me and he's like, yeah, I feel like it was a joke, but we should probably do this. And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't see anybody doing it, having these conversations. Like we can have these conversations. We can do our own work. We can have the healing. We can have the reconciliation. And we're a model of that. It's been a long time and a lot of work, right? To get here. A lot of pain, a lot of dirt. But here we are. There's flowers growing out the dirt, right? Yeah. And I thought, yeah, let's do it because this is what really we're about.
Oftentimes when people go through this kind of situation, they tend to lock themselves off. Essentially, they're locking the world out. did you ever go through a moment or through a period where you kind of locked everybody out? The people that were reaching out, trying to help or trying to be close. Did you kind of just ghost them? Yeah.
Yeah. There were those.
Okay.
Because Genevieve mentioned this earlier. Like, it's hard for other people to understand really what's going on, right? They have good intentions, but like they don't know what to say all the time.
Right.
And maybe if they say they have some good to say. If they were to say it 2 days earlier, then you're good. But on that day, maybe that's the opposite of what you want to hear. What you need to hear.
Right. Yeah. You feel that grieving, it's the loss of a marriage is the same as the loss of a loved one if they were to die.
Yes, I would say that we go through very similar stages. I went through very similar stages when it came to grieving. I lost my brother when I was younger. And the stages lasted longer when I was younger because I didn't know quite how to grieve.
Right.
In walking through divorce and sort of navigating that loss, I knew how to grieve. Like I knew what to expect. I'd done some sort of, some work in that area. And so I allowed myself to grieve. Right. I allowed myself to go through, and I didn't question it. I wasn't like, oh man, you need to be strong. You shouldn't cry. And, all the things you should be over it by now. And, all the things that we say to ourselves that make things worse. I didn't get to do that. I didn't have to do that throughout this process. I was like, if you're gonna cry, you're gonna cry. I was like, I'm gonna do the ugly cry, and if I it's like that's what's gonna happen. I think that was helpful just to have grieved before poorly. I could grieve better.
Okay, so looking ahead, how do you see collaborating or helping each other through their personal and professional lives? How do you see that going?
Yeah, we were chatting about this before because we're both doing what we said we wanted to do. Even when we met, when we were talking, when we were dating, we had very similar goals and ideas, right? We both wanted to travel. We both wanted to, speak. We wanted to be doing similar things to what we're doing now.
Right.
And I think what's really cool is that we get to come together and do it. Right. And we were saying that was established before we got married. Like we had a sense of what we wanted to do. We had sort of a vision and idea for our lives before we got together. And those were some things that were salient to us, right? We had sort of a sense of like calling and like vision. And that didn't change because when we came together, it fit.
Right.
We were like, oh, we could do this together, Right. So it's funny because we're doing it now. We're just not doing it together. We're still doing what we said we wanted to do. So I think in that we can partner together to continue the work, right? To do the work of, I guess, sharing our stories for the purpose of revolutionizing relationships. I truly believe that we are created for relationships as human beings. And so any time spent talking about relationships, working on our relationships, that's time well spent. That's purposeful, meaningful, fulfilling time spent.
Right.
And we're going to bear fruit from that. We're going to get something good out of that. In terms of our partnering at this point, we have that same idea, mentality, and belief. And so I think with just sharing our story, it can be helpful for others to see, like, it is possible. Yes, you might be angry, pissed off, you want to kill your ex now, but it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to carry that anger. You don't have to walk around bitter. There's another way, right? And it can be beautiful.
What message of hope do you have for those that may be heading towards it, that think that they would have no chances at happiness afterwards?
Do the work. Do the work. We can recover from anything. Anything that happens to us in life, we can recover emotionally, we can recover mentally, we can recover relationally, if we put in the time, the effort, and the work, right? And so that does mean confessing, it does mean facing, it does mean addressing, it does mean processing, it does mean crying, it does mean being angry, it does mean questioning, and something beautiful can come out of the pain. Like, I think I would probably say, and this probably sounds cliche, but you're not going through it for no reason. You know, your pain is not wasted. Like, I like the idea of flowers growing out of the dirt. You know what I mean? No matter what you're going through, and, you know, no matter what this is not the end of your story. Like, something good is going to come out of it if you focus, you stick to it, and you do the work.
And you, from a male's perspective?
My most honest answer, zooming out and looking at the arc of history and understanding that, like, men have fallen. Men do fall. Men will fall. Men have fallen. I'm not saying that to justify, say, I'm going to go and do whatever, and if I fall, I fall. Live your best life. Aim for the heights, but understand that falling, historically, scientifically, all guaranteed. An example that recently has been speaking to me is the example of Peter in the Bible. And Peter says, Jesus, I'll never die. And Jesus is like, before the end of the day, you're going to deny me 3 times. And I feel to a degree like that's what I did with Genevieve, right? I said, Genevieve, I will treat you this way. Right? And God's like, ha, 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 ha. I know your future, right? You're going to fall. Yeah. While in the moment, it was hard for myself or Genevieve and the people around us. We're looking at the fall. God is zooming out, and God's like, men fall. And I have a plan and I have a purpose. Yeah. And the plan and the goal is to get you to trust me and to be with me, because that relationship lasts forever. Right. So that's my answer number 1. The answer number 2, as a man, I'm going to get a little bit controversial here. I think that society is kind to men as they grow. Society is kinder to men. We allow men to mess up, and we say, well, that's just men being men. And that can be a justification for us men to act out of pocket. Like the way the men age, right? Men age, they say, gracefully, right? And as a man's confidence increases, the way they navigate the world, that's one of the most attractive and valuable things about them. As I've gotten older and as I continue to get older, I'm aware of that. I'm aware of the fact that I understand now what I didn't understand 10 years ago. That's an advantage. What gives me hope, understanding that as a man, that there are certain things that are set up for me to succeed. And my responsibility as somebody who wants to live life the right way is to use that for good.
For a man that falls, how does he get up?
Don't give up, right? Like, you skew the data in your favor if you keep trying, and if you learn, and if you iterate. That's what it comes down to. Like, if you stop, then the motion stops. Eventually, you go from a wide pool of things I don't know to a narrow pool of things you do know. And you increase like the toolbox and the tools you have available to you to get where you want to go.
Right. Excellent.
This is revolutionary relationships right here. These are the folks that have been through it from the beginning to the now.
When I first started developing a crush on Genevieve, Simone was there. I don't remember if Kalenea was there. We were in New York, right?
Gosh, New York. November 2014. Wow.
2014. Yeah.
Wow.
2014.
Yes.
Yeah. So we had been friends or acquaintances before that. Again, travel is huge for us, right? So after a couple of days, I'm like, I like the way we travel together. I like how efficient she is. I like the balance between the way that she communicates and the way that I communicate. I think we have a nice yin and yang type of thing going on. So that was my first. I was very logical. So I was like, there might be something here, right? So that was, and Simone was there for that trip.
Yeah. It's all coming back now. But wow, what a decade it's been. And I think we've all been transformed by it. And we really don't have all the answers. Because I feel like if you were not connected to the right circles during everything that has happened, it could have been a very sad story.
A certain way.
Yeah, it could have went a different way. So just be mindful of your connections while you're going through, while you're navigating.
Yeah. I needed you guys to be there with me and for me. And I think what really helped, well, obviously y'all are God-fearing and so on, but y'all would tell me the truth. So confession is good for the soul. I started dating before I officially got divorced.
No,
whatever. So, and I don't advocate this for anybody, right? So obviously I'm about the covenant and so on, but I started dating before I officially got divorced. And one of my girlfriends was like, is that the kind of life you want to be living out here in these streets, Genevieve? And I was like, pull up. Oh my gosh. Okay. But we need people like that to tell us the truth, like about our actions, and to hold the mirror up to us and say, hey, is this the kind of reflection that pleases you? Are you satisfied with what you're doing, what you're looking at? Like, what do you want to be able to say about yourself and how you're dealing with life? even in its hardship, what do you want to be able to say about yourself? And I think that you guys were really good reflections for me in compassion, with kindness, with love, but honest, like real, like that is a blessing. A lot of people don't have friends, and then a lot of people don't have amazing friends. I have the most amazing friends. So I do have the most amazing friend.
How it was watching it as friends. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. And like we go through the divorce too, but on a different sort of step removed way, but still like the dreams and hopes that I had for their marriage. Like I was gonna be auntie. I didn't get to be auntie. So like it seems so trivial, but the dreams and the visions I had for their relationship and what would be birthed out of this, I had to release that. And then even harder also had to evaluate, like, did I miss something? Mm-hmm. Like when I saw certain things, should I have said something? Did I have, like, where was I? Mm-hmm. Because how is it that my friend is going through this and I couldn't have stopped it somehow or like impacted it somehow. And then also how her journey through divorce impacted our friendship and our relationship and how I showed up for her in the grieving process, how she showed up in our relationship. Not that I had any expectation, to be completely honest, because divorce is no joke. Just considering that, I'm like, okay, so how do I do this as somebody who's not been through divorce? I mean, my parents are divorced, but it's different. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just like, how do you be a good friend in this and not just a random, are you still alive text, and navigate, am I a good enough friend or the friend that she needs in this situation?
I want to chime in here briefly. One of the senses of failures that I felt too is that I betrayed Genevieve's family and friends, right? Particularly Kalenea. I remember Kalenea, like maybe it was the day before the wedding or she's like, thank you for loving my friend. And that stuck with me. That was so sweet, so meaningful, right? And then to the separation divorce process, that was one of the things that rang in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't love her friend properly. Like she trusted me with that responsibility and I failed in that area. So that added to the burden.
I was kind of disappointed on his behalf just to know that all of the effort that he put in, it kind of got to that point. But ultimately, my biggest concern, like how is he doing emotionally? Because like he was saying, men don't necessarily, they're more so concerned about how are other people doing? How is my wife doing? How is my girlfriend? How's my family? How's my kids? Whatever. They kind of look externally to make sure everyone else is okay, but they don't allow people to kind of delve into what they're experiencing. So just knowing that, like I try to make it my duty to say, okay, are you good outside of this strong exterior that you have? Are you okay? You know? And if you're not okay, is there anything I can do to make sure that you're doing well? Because I know we kind of brush it off, but men hurt, right? And sometimes you don't see it until it's too late or they lash out in some certain way. And so as a friend, I just try to make it my duty to be like, okay, I'm here for you. Emotionally, even if it's just my presence, I'm just here so that you don't feel like you're in it alone.
Any last words?
I look back at our relationship. We started as acquaintances, then friends, right? And then dating, and then engaged, and then married, and then separated and divorced. And I think something that I've always admired about you is you were one of the most caring and helpful people I'd ever met, right? And I still tell stories about things before we were dating. There's stories that I tell about how caring you were. While we were dating, there are stories I tell about how caring you were. I feel honored in the time that we were married. There were some ways that I was able to support and be present for you. In my mind, I'm like, we've been so many things. The story is not over, right? Like, I don't know what the next season holds, but if we can support each other, that's the dream. And I think we've since we met, that's always kind of how it's been. It's looked different in different seasons, but like the book is not done. Right?
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. And I think part of it is recognizing, what to do with what we have in each season. And while certain things are unexpected or disappointing or painful, I think both of us have that disposition where we look for the best. We look for, what can come out of whatever it is that we're going through. We did the best that we could do with what we had, but there were definitely seeds planted that now we're seeing the fruit of, right? And I think that speaks volumes when it comes to relationships. There's longevity. It doesn't have to end or look one way all the time, right? There's evolution or revolution, but really thinking back to how we poured into what we had at the time and how we took care of it based on what we knew. And then for the future, thinking about like how we take care of what we have now. Right? Because I really do think that this is an area that's untapped. I think it's an area that a lot of people can benefit from, can receive hope from, can receive motivation from. The future is bright.
I agree.
The future is beautiful. It's great.
Just sitting here and listening to you two, I gotta say, you're evolved human beings.
You're evolved.
No, I'm telling you. In today's society where people are, not many people can sit and have this kind of civil, mature conversation without some kind of malice, some kind of hate, some kind of, bringing their traumas in. And you have to be well self-aware in order to be that.
Yeah.
So, and most people nowadays are not self-aware.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's
kudos.
Thank you for that. It's been fun. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being present here. Join us. Continue to tune in for these transformational conversations. We'll be here. We're available for interviews as well as for podcast speaking engagements. If you want us to come to your organization, you love to travel, and we will come and hang out with y'all and talk about our journey. I don't know if y'all are going through a divorce. Give us a call. I am a relationship coach at Corner Counselor, and we would actually be happy to come and add value to you if you're doing retreats, conferences. Divorce is a real thing, and we have to learn how to navigate it.